Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and so here we got basically Peter's story within the 1994 movie. This is a nice little rundown of what happens in Peter's story in the whole entire movie. So, first things first, we get to have Peter, who is basically an outcast. He's kind of lonely. He's like someone who's just keeps to himself. Basically, doing his studies, doing his homework, basically keeps him calm and relaxed. He believes that deep down, he believes that he was the reason why his parents left or his parents died in a plane crash when he was 6. You also should know that he actually was born in Maryland and stayed there from 0 to 6 years old. And then when he actually, he got into foster care, or basically his aunt and uncle took him. That's where he's been from 6 all the way to 17 years old. He's actually 17 in the movie. So the good news is that in this movie, they didn't really have the idea of where they're like, oh, he's going to be in high school all throughout the whole entire movie, all throughout this franchise. They only just did a Spider-Man movie. That's what they did. They just did a Spider-Man movie and didn't give a crap if it's like, oh, he should be in high school, or oh, he should just be already started up or anything. First, Peter, he basically likes Mary Jane, and he has mixed thoughts on either if she was in a burning building, will he actually go in and save her or actually let her die? Because he kind of dislikes her, but on the other hand, he kind of fantasizes about her and kind of likes her in the same way. So it's a love-hate relationship. The other idea is just the fact of Uncle Ben lives for the longest time in this movie. He does. I'm sorry I have to admit in Peter's story, but I might as well just throw it in. It's not really about Aunt May or Uncle Ben in this movie entirely. So I'm just going to throw in that Uncle Ben and Aunt May is there for him. They don't have like anything truly all that's awesome about them. So that's all I need to tell is just that Uncle Ben survives the longest. Anyways, what happened with Peter is that he sometimes gets bullied. He gets bullied by Flash, I bet. And it's not the only time he actually gets bullied by Flash. So he gets bullied by Flash a couple of times. He does have friends, apparently, that are straight A students, but we don't really get the whole. We don't really get like he's friends with them, but we don't actually get to see him actually socialize with them a few times. It's that they were there, and then after that, it's like they're nowhere to be found. So that's like one thing that's kind of weird and abrupt is the fact that his straight A students just left him. But of course, if he's not doing good in school, they don't want to socialize with him because he is not a straight A student anymore. With that said, what happens is that he goes on a field trip, kind of like what happened in Spider-Man. In Amazing Spider-Man, he actually forced himself in that field trip. But as for Spider-Man, he actually was a part of that field trip. So in this one, he actually comes on the field trip. Or it's not even a field trip, it's a seminar he was invited to. Kind of like something that Amazing Spider-Man should have took from this. Or if they would have had Harry in Amazing Spider-Man, well, Harry would have pulled strings, so he could actually have been a part of that internship. But there's lots of loopholes in that, and we're not talking about that. So he goes there, he gets bitten by the spider, he has some messed up reactions to it, and weirdly enough, his Spider-Man essence, or his spider essence with inside of him, actually made him climb a 80-foot building without even him knowing with his consciousness. So that's kind of weird, but that was just something. It was kind of fun to just see him actually run with his underwear, making sure no one is catching him. And as soon as he goes back home, he thinks everything is fine and safe, but then when he goes to sleep again, he finds out there's lots of webs and stuff. Yeah, that he webbed himself to the bed, or at least to the sheets, and it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, and the Spinneret shows up and he's like, oh my gosh, and everything. And eventually he came to the point of where he actually decides to explore his new powers, explore his new gifts and abilities. On the same side, too, he actually decides to also do some research on spiders, period. And he's kind of getting closer to MJ since she is his lab partner. So he continues on, and night by night he actually goes out and enjoys himself. But he is basically getting some messed up grades in school while doing it. And also, Uncle Ben and Aunt May are kind of worried about him because he's out all night long and he doesn't come in until like very late. And they're like very, very concerned for him. So eventually he comes to the point of where he's like, I need to get money off of this. I can make money off this. So that's when he basically goes on variety shows, perform on the street, does parties. He does all that, and he got the attention of Strand, who is actually the bad guy of this movie. Meanwhile, Strand is doing some backup research and stuff on him and trying to figure out who he is. Spider-Man is just enjoying himself, you know? And eventually he became part of a crime fighter. He also came to the rescue of Mary Jane when she was slapped by Flash. Actually slapped her, and he came and actually did a showdown with him where he actually beat him up very badly, and then after that he destroyed his Porsche, which is reckless, but on the other hand I think Flash does deserve it. So we got all of that, and then eventually he comes to the part of where he actually decided to become a superhero. He actually become a hero, and it also is not different from all the other times. The fact that Uncle Ben died. So he wanted to find Uncle Ben's killer, and he does. But sadly, the police officers were like, well, dude, that's messed up. The funny part is that not only he became a crime fighter, but he still does the parties and stuff on the side as well. So he's actually getting paid for the parties, and he also does it just to get the aggression out and everything else. In fact, of the thrill as well. That's what's going on, and eventually it comes to a point of where he had a face-off with Sandman, and then after that, lots of stuff happens. He eventually got very close to MJ, and he also actually had sex with her. He eventually goes to the bad head honcho's mansion, and he tries to actually make him join him, and he says no. So Strand decides to put a horrible ad campaign and make Spider-Man look bad. And he does, and eventually it comes to the point of where he actually was forced to kidnap Mary Jane. So Strad has Mary Jane in the World Trade Center, and this is like at least the third time World Trade Center was mentioned. So he decided to have to go to the World Trade Center, but not before dodging all these cops and SWAT teams that was actually in Strad's mansion because, well, Cordelia, Strad's love interest, is dead. Or technically sex interest. So you have Boyd, who is Sandman, Strad, and MJ on the World Trade Center. Spider-Man is going for it. He is gunning it. So as he goes in the World Trade Center, there's the big showdown of first where they were just talking. Spider-Man was listening. And then after that, Sandman put Spider-Man in kind of like a guillotine or something like that, or some kind of holding position. So where he can't go and save Mary Jane while Mary Jane is getting electrocuted, and then she got killed. Of course, Mary Jane got brought back to life. Spider-Man broke free. He saves MJ, and they get out of the building. And then Strad, along with Boyd, Strad is angry. Not only that, but Strad actually offered Spider-Man $250 million just to join him. Or at least he just demonstrated that he could get that much money. So along with that, you have this final showdown where they actually fight on the World Trade Center. I don't really know. I kind of didn't read how Sandman met his demise, but Strad, on the other hand, was severely injured and he died, but he died knowing Peter's identity. At the end of the movie, Peter, of course, graduated. He's now in college. MJ's on a different college, but before that all happened, Spider-Man revealed to MJ that he's Spider-Man. And she was like, oh my gosh. And of course Flash wanted to have some words with Peter. And Peter kind of secretly made him a goof because he kept on tripping and missing all of his hits and punches and kicks. But of course it just ended with Spider-Man. Actually, Spider-Man is still active. And Peter's grades are still suffering because of it, but he's still Spider-Man, and that's how the story of Peter began and ended. So yeah, it's technically it's Ultimate Spider-Man because Well, it's not really Ultimate Spider-Man because they're still in high school, but on the other hand, Spider-Man never actually revealed that he was Spider-Man to Mary Jane. Not only that, but he never actually even had him in high school in the 616 version, of course. So, anyways, that's what I have to tell you. So, what do you think about Peter's story in the 1994 movie? This is one of them. The other one, I'll talk about it as soon as I get to it. But for right now, I'm going to whip out. Tell me what you guys think about this. Peace.